Good morning. My name is Nick Dirks. I am the Vice President for the Arts and Sciences and Dean of the Faculty at Columbia. And happily, I'm about to introduce someone who will make it clear that your name doesn't have to be Nick to be a dean at Columbia. It is my great pleasure and privilege to introduce this conversation between Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk and our new Dean of the School of the Arts, Carol Becker. Carol has come to us just at the beginning of this month from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where she was Dean of the Faculty and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. She brings not only a wealth of leadership experience, but also an extraordinary dedication to fostering artistic creativity and to enhancing the role of the arts and the role of the artist in society. As a writer, a cultural critic, and educator, she will help the arts excel at Columbia and in New York City, bringing, I think, a richer experience both to our MFA students in the 4 divisions of theater, visual arts, writing, and film, and also for our undergraduates, whose experience of the arts will be expanded and enhanced under Carol's leadership. With research interests that range from feminist theory, American cultural history, and the education of artists, to South African art and politics, she has published numerous articles and books including The Invisible Drama, Women and the Anxiety of Change, The Subversive Imagination, The Artist, Society and Social Responsibility, Zones of Contention, Essays on Art, Institutions and Gender, and Surpassing the Spectacle. We're delighted that Carol agreed not only to come from Chicago to New York, but from New York to Paris to engage in this conversation with Orhan Pamuk. Orhan Pamuk is, in fact, someone with a deep connection with Columbia University. During 3 quiet years in the late 1980s, when his wife was a graduate student in the Department of Art History, Orhan occupied a carrel in the upper reaches of Butler Library and wrote what is still one of his most important and also most deeply personal books, novels, The Black Book. It was this connection that indirectly led to a regular appointment just last year, just in time, of course, to host Orhan as he received the highest global honor for his work as a writer. The Black Book is a stirring narrative, a mystery story of sorts, a love story too, that explores in depth several of Pamuk's enduring novelistic themes, among them the question of personal identity. The protagonist of the novel searches the urban landscape of Istanbul for his vanished wife and her half-brother, whose identity he eventually takes on, writing his newspaper column, occupying his apartment, wearing his clothes. This doubling of characters takes place in other novels of Pamuk's as well. For example, in The White Castle, where 2 men exchange life stories only to exchange identities as well. Perhaps the riddle at the heart of Snow, Pamuk's most recent and most acclaimed novel, is an extension of the same question. The protagonist Ka enters and ultimately disappears in a blinding blizzard in the northern town of Kars, on the cusp of the old Ottoman Empire, where Ka seems to be searching for his own original identity after years spent outside Turkey in Germany, where he was a political exile, perforce taking on a different, detached, and Western, of course, identity. A poet who cared little for politics, he found himself nevertheless caught in a blizzard of politics, having taken on the false identity of a journalist to explore his interest in the suicides of young girls over the prohibition of wearing a veil. Ka not only found himself in the grip of the storm, but also caught between the stark Manichaean worlds represented by political Islam on the one side and the post-Ataturk secular state on the other. Both worlds appear intolerant, the flip sides of each other, as the poet finds himself inescapably engulfed by political turmoil and danger. Life and art are never easy to keep apart, and Pamuk's craft clearly springs in part from his own experience of growing up in a cultural milieu defined largely by its position on the classical cusp of East and West. Even the Istanbul telephone directory denominates the Bosphorus as the boundary between Asia and Europe. And the doubling of identity has also perhaps been the reigning national allegory of modern Turkey. Pamuk's writing is clearly indebted to great European novels and novelists, starting perhaps with Kafka, think only of Snow's protagonist's name, but is even more profoundly influenced by Dostoevsky and other Russian writers, themselves perched on another kind of cognate border between East and West. But more recently, Pamuk's life took on a different and more dangerous mimetic character as he found himself accused of impugning the national character of Turkey itself by remarks to a journalist about the histories of Armenians and Kurds in modern Turkey. Suddenly seeking exile, Orhan came back to his other city, New York, and took refuge in another carrel, this time in the upper reaches of the Deutsche House on 116th Street, just to the east of the main campus. That's where he was during the winter, a snowbound winter at that, of 2005. And it was because of this visit and the acquaintances that were renewed during this time that I met Orhan and was able to persuade him to take the sanctuary of Columbia as the basis for a regular academic appointment. He was the first visiting fellow of the Committee on Global Thought, a creation of President Bollinger's vision to make Columbia a genuinely global university, and he's now a regular professor at large in the arts and sciences each fall. Days after coming to Columbia last fall, he, of course, was awarded the Nobel Prize. A fact that was little known at the time was that this was a convenience for us, since we were having a small visa problem with Orhan, and we needed a major international prize in order to clear the bureaucratic hurdles. That being said, we all basked, in fact, in the prize and the glory it shed upon him and, by extension, us. And we are delighted that he continues to be with us, for his presence reminds us that the university itself is a sanctuary where ideas, literature, art, philosophy collide with life in the privileged and protected spaces of intellectual exploration and mutual respect. We're thrilled to have Orhan and Carol as two of Columbia's newest citizens and to have them here with us in Paris. Please join me in welcoming Carol Becker and Orhan Pamuk.